Welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abassi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. Welcome. It is Friday. I'm recording at about 2:18 p.m. on a Friday, and we just got back from my mother-in-law's house. We got to have lunch with them. It was so much fun. By them, it was her and her sister. So my aunt-in-law, and it was really fun. And I learned a little bit about how to make pierogies and a Pakistani curry, actually, without the spice. Which I like it better without the spice, but that's just me. I know that is so illegal to have non-spicy Pakistan food or Indian food, but that's the way I like it. So it was really fun. Yesterday, I mentioned in my social media share that I made up a Persian dish yesterday. So this is the first time that I just cooked Persian food without having a recipe. I had a bunch of leftovers. I had some cabbage, potatoes, carrots, and at first I thought, okay, I'm gonna make a soup, but I was thinking like American soup. I'm just gonna put all this stuff in there, add some broth, like we have like this garlic broth. It's really good. And I don't know, I was gonna make it like soup, add some noodles, and then I started thinking maybe I should have rice instead of noodles. And then I thought maybe I should make this Persian instead of American. So I just grabbed some of the classic Persian, the staples, which I'm learning. I don't want to act like I'm the expert, but from what I've cooked, that's Persian so far. Some of the staples are turmeric, which is also in pretty much any like Mediterranean dish or Indian dish so far that I've cooked with. So turmeric, saffron, and then I put some cayenne in there, which I found out is not a staple for Persian cooking, but it added like a really nice heat. I have found that if I put a half of a teaspoon of cayenne in any dish that's serving four people or more, then it's like the perfect heat for me. So I put in some cayenne and some other stuff. I used a Persian lime, which is just a little dried lime, and I put it, oh, and I added some Royal Corona beans. So these Royal Corona beans are the biggest bean you'll ever see. And it's we received them as part of a bean club that we're a part of. Look it up. There are bean clubs. My friend got me onto this, and it's taken years. And finally, I caved, and we are now a part of the bean club, and it's super fun. We also got popcorn from the bean club. So I put these big, gigantic Royal Corona beans in there, and yeah, I boiled it all. I boiled it all for, um, gosh, like 2 or 3 hours. I feel like it was closer to 3 hours, but I wasn't totally looking at the clock. I was really just waiting for the beans to be done. And the beans, like if you break it open, I don't know, I could kind of see how creamy they were going to be. So I was tasting it as I went, and it is delectable. My dish is delectable. So we brought it over today for lunch, and they didn't eat it for the lunch, but they did taste it. They're going to eat it another time. And no, they're not eating it because they tried it and they don't want it. They decided we had enough food, so they're going to have it later. But it was fun. It was fun to talk Persian cooking with them. And I got a recipe for the dough for the perushkis. Oh, now I don't know. Perushkis. Yeah, I don't know. I said it earlier the right way, and now I can't think of the right way. Anyway, yeah, and that's really good. It's like a sweet, kind of a sweet dough, and then you fill it with a ground beef. And so there was ground beef, onion, parsley, and uh potato and barberries in it. And then you deep fry it. Anything deep fried is amazing. So we ate that, and then a curry that actually is from Pakistan, and that was amazing too. And all of it, like the Persian cooking, seems like all of these ways of cooking that I'm learning about require you to cook like all day long. Like the stuff simmers on the stovetop all day long, and it is well worth the wait. It's so amazing. So anyway, that's what I did this today for lunch, and that was really fun. That's very unusual. We don't typically leave the house in the middle of the day during the week because he's working, but it was super fun. Anyway, the topic I wanted to talk about, and I've talked about this before. I probably have talked about all of these topics before, but there's always a new perspective on it, a new spin on it, depending on the day and depending on what's going on in my recovery. And today's morning meetings were about prayer and meditation. And Step 11 talks about using constructive imagination. And I started thinking about early this morning, I was thinking about how when I was drinking, I felt like my imagination was like in full bloom. My creativity was in full bloom when I was drinking. That's when I wrote all that poetry. And coincidentally, my daughter sent me a text about half an hour ago and said, "Did you write the poem called Torchmate Before Christmas?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, it sounds familiar. I'm not sure. I mean, that was when I was full on drinking. So it doesn't surprise me that I don't remember this. But she said, well, it says it's written by Rachel Miller, which was my name when I started the podcast, but now I'm married. Again, and it's Rachel Abasi. But and I said, well, then it's definitely me that wrote it. And she sent me a link to it, but the link's not working. So hopefully I will see a copy of it um, later today. But I saw like a, a little piece of it, and it looks pretty good. But I was definitely drinking when I wrote that. So I felt like when I was drinking, like I was so creative. And when I stopped drinking, I stopped writing poetry, first of all. But when I later went back to look at the poetry, I felt like it wasn't really that creative. Personally, it was all very morbid, and it just was like an eighth grader wrote it, I think. But I felt when I was writing it that I was so inspired, that I'm writing things that nobody has ever felt before. And this is just, there's passion just bleeding from my heart. Um, but then when I look at it, I'm like, gosh, that was a lot of energy that I was burning to come up with stuff that was not unique. Isn't that amazing? When I talk about in the way that the reason why I say it so often, like, um, I'm not unique, is because I really, really had an incredible amount of passion that made me feel like I was so unique. I was so emotional. I was so sensitive. And I thought, there is nobody that who is like me. Like, I'm going to die one day and nobody will know this great um thing that lives inside of me that is just, like I said, bleeding passion. It was crazy. It was crazy. It was literally crazy. I mentioned the past two episodes, like my brain was warped. And but there's something good that comes out of all that. That imagination is something that has helped me in sobriety. Um, and I don't know that I recognized that until the past couple times that this topic about constructive imagination has come up for me. But that whole idea of acting as if, I didn't have like a concrete concept of God or higher power, and I just had to start with something. And so I just acted as if I knew uh, who my higher power was and what I wanted him to be in my life. And I just did it because I knew that not doing it got me drunk. So I'm going to do what these people in these meetings tell me to do. So I really just used my imagination and I constructed a concept of God. I constructed a concept of my higher power. And for me, these are two different things. However, most recently, I was in a meeting where, I've always said my higher power is everything outside of myself, including God. Well, somebody said in a meeting a couple months ago, and it came up again this morning, God is in everything. And I thought, wait a minute. That means I have to recreate my concept of my higher power, but it's not recreating it. It's evolving. And it evolves the more that I work on my relationship with my concept of my higher power, my God. Um, it I start feeling a little different. Like my relationship changes, I suppose, and it is ever evolving. And I think that that's so inspiring. One of the reasons why I never wanted to graduate from school was that I never wanted to stop learning. And I just saw adulthood as something that all the fun is over. You don't learn anything else. You just take what you know. It's like I thought everything I'm ever going to know, I'm going to learn in school. That's what I thought. I don't know. So naive, I guess. And I still am in a lot of ways. My husband says it a lot of times when I'm like, I'm so trusting of my kids. And sometimes I'll say something like, oh, like when they were younger and they were in high school, I'm like, oh, they don't drink. They don't drink. They told me that they don't drink. And he's like, you're so naive. And I'm like, whatever, they wouldn't lie to me. Anyway, I've come to learn that they don't need to tell me everything, and it's probably best some of the stuff that I don't know because it seems like the more I find out that I didn't know, the more I wish I never knew. So, anyway, I think that this concept of higher power and this program, it's like I got back on this train of learning, and this train never ends. I don't graduate. And I mean, you can tell on my face, like, I'm excited for that. I'm excited that every day is another chance to explore what is what is possible. Not only what is not what is possible, um, in the world, like in the world around me that I mentioned yesterday that I feel is being molded before me, but also like what is going on inside of me, the possibilities of there's so much still I get to learn about myself, and I'm never going to be done. Um, this morning in my second meeting, there was a woman who shared who was celebrating 40 years of sobriety. And she was sharing, and you know, when you hear somebody who's 80 something sharing, and the same things are coming out of her mouth as one of my peers, somebody my age, it really tells me that this program is a lifetime program, and it's something that can be applied to anyone's life. The woman had a hard time keeping her train of thought. It would just kind of tr trickle, like dissipate, like disappear. What she was trying to say, it would just kind of fade away, and she would end in the middle of a sentence, and then she'd be like, she would blame it on her age, but then she finally said, I had a stroke. And I was like, she's speaking my language. Like I could, when she would do that, I could tell what was happening because it happens to me too. It's like this, it's like you can be very much into what you're saying, but then all of a sudden it just disappears. And you keep saying the words that you were planning to say, but you forget what the point was. And lots of people do that. Oh, I can't remember why I was saying that. That's a normal thing. This is a little different. It's kind of like the thoughts that you were thinking just kind of float away and they never come back. But she kept doing that. So when I shared, I was like, "Oh, you're speaking my language. I know exactly what it feels like to be talking and it just disappears what it was that you were trying to say, and it happens over and over and over again. It happened for her several times when she was sharing, but this idea of self-forgetting, that's not what they're talking about in the program. So, anyway, step 11 says it's about getting us out of ourselves. Like the step 11 prayer talks about praying to comfort rather than to be comforted, to love than to be loved. Where there's darkness, let there be let me bring light. Let me be the light, or whatever. This whole concept of let me give, let me give more than I receive. It's about self-forgetting. It's about being of service, forgetting about where I am in my life and being present for where people are in their lives. And so it just made me laugh about uh, in my first meeting, we were talking about self-forgetting, and in my second meeting, I was talking about literally just forgetting. So it was kind of funny. That's how things align for me when you go to two meetings back to back. Um, so meditation, I talked a little bit about my relationship and how it is evolving with my concept of my higher power. But meditation is this whole, it- for me, I feel like it's very separate from prayer. Meditation for me is more of this, I guess, spiritual type exercise as opposed to a religious type exercise. And I don't like when I get too close to playing on words, but meditation is something that I try to practice every day. And if it's nothing else, I just sit in silence for a few minutes and I just be, I just let whatever's going to go through my mind, and then practice recognizing what's going through my mind and telling it to stop and coming back to being just being again. So, for example, I'll be sitting here and then let's say I'm meditating and I don't even need to close my eyes, but I'm just sitting in silence. A lot of times I've told you guys that my Boris, my bulldog, is a nice snoring background for meditation. So sometimes I'll just sit and listen to him snoring. And the longer I sit, my thoughts just kind of start gliding around on those snores, and they pick up different ideas about things like, oh, I wish I didn't say that. Like I could easily sit here and go, I wish when I was at my mother-in-law's that I didn't say XYZ. And then I'll just go down that road and I'll just be like, oh, why did I say that? Like I mean, I'm not doing that. I didn't say anything that I regret or anything, but I can easily go in that direction and then be super regretful. And it will become this big story that's like blown up in my mind that I'm telling myself about how I shouldn't have done this or I shouldn't have said that. And so if I can practice recognizing that I'm doing that and saying, okay, you're blowing a memory into a story. So come back to center, come back to the snoring. And and then I do that and then I sit again and try to keep my mind clear. And it's that practice of bringing myself back to center, bringing myself back to the snoring of the bulldog. That is the meditation part. It's it's learning how to be an open channel rather than being a river flowing with regrets and, stuff that makes your heart start racing. Um, so that's something that I practice. And then I think when I every night before I go to bed and I get on my knees and I thank God for my sobriety, for not smoking, for having the willingness to recover. I've added another one. I just recently added another one to my prayer. Um, I thank God for my body. And the reason why I just started that after I had my vestibular um, testing done because the feeling that they initiated inside of my head by blowing that hair, blowing that air in my ear was so uncomfortable and startling that it made me very grateful for the body that I have, um, that the stroke that I had, that my disease of alcoholism, that my life prior to 50 has not taken away what I have now. And I want to be really grateful for that because just like I am grateful for not smoking, when I say at night before bed I'm grateful for not smoking, I take a deep breath every single time, every night when I say I'm grateful for not smoking. I breathe in as deep as I can because there is this sensation of breathing in as deep as I can that I couldn't do when I was smoking. And I like to remind myself of that. That is why you don't smoke, because of that feeling that you can breathe in so deep and full. So I always take a deep breath to remind myself that that is because I don't smoke anymore, and that keeps me from smoking. So I also have my body, and then finally, thy will be done, not mine. And when I'm saying thy will be done, not mine, I've told you guys before, I thought I was saying that because something's going to happen to other people, like thy will be done, not mine. But lo and behold, thy will was for me to have a stroke. So I was like, okay, so thy will is not going to be necessarily something that that I want to happen. Not that I want things to happen to other people. Sorry, I need to take a sip of my tea real quick. Nice. It's green tea with jasmine. So, um, thy will be done, not mine. Getting out of myself and being again that open channel in my life. So not just like meditating for me is um like a mental open channel. And when I go to bed before I go to bed and I say thy will be done, that is more on a grander scale saying, I want my life to be a channel for you. Um, I don't want to do things my way anymore because my way got me drunk. My way did not get me a lot in my life. But when I gave up my way and started doing things the way that the program tells me to, the way that my sobriety program tells me to, that's when things started getting better. So, thy will, not mine, be done. The program tells me to stop trying to control everything, Rachel. Like, allow things to flow. Allow things to flow in and flow out of you. You don't have to grab a hold of all of them and, reconstruct them like a Rubik's Cube and then hand them off to something else. You don't have to do that. Like, just let things flow in and out of me. And that really allows me to let go, to ride the waves. I drank to numb myself so that I could let things happen without having to grab a hold of them. I didn't know how to l ride the waves without drinking. Drinking shut down those parts of me that wanted to control everything and change everything. Um, until drinking didn't do that. Like, wait, drinking shut down those parts of me that wanted to control everything until drinking stopped doing that, and I still wanted to control everything. It worked until it didn't work. Drinking was my medication for myself until it didn't work anymore. Um, so my program, uh, it teaches me how to do these things without drinking, without numbing parts of me, shutting things down. It teaches me how to slow down without having alcohol or drugs slow me down. It teaches me how to pause and respond instead of react. So I say that a lot of times. It allows me to pause. But I think what is important inside of that, what's important is what am I doing inside the pause? You know, everybody can pause, everybody can shut their mouth and stop talking and just wait. But how do you turn the reaction into a response during the pause? It's the adjustment of your sails on the inside of you that is the important part, the stuff that you're doing inside the pause. I'm pausing and I'm doing some self-reflection. A lot of times I'm quickly practicing the steps. Like I'm practicing my sobriety's micro steps in an instant when I pause. Like, remember why you might be resentful. What's your color wheel of emotions? Name it. Um, those things that I talk about in all the episodes, that stuff that's happening inside the pause, that's the most important part. So, even though people say, don't just react, like you need to think before you speak, it's how do you do that? And that's what a lot of these episodes are about. It's about what am I doing during when I'm quiet? What's happening between my ears? Um, and the stuff that I was looking for in my box of wine, I found in the steps of my sobriety program. The older woman today who was celebrating 40 years of sobriety, she said, the quality of my life keeps improving. And I think that that's just astounding that she can say after having a stroke, after having some other medical issues, that her life keeps getting better. And when I shared, I was like, isn't that astounding? Like, I can have a stroke and say my life's still getting better. Because what is getting better? My ability to face anything is getting better. So the more stuff that's thrown at me that I can face, that I determine I have the tools to deal with, the better my life is, So it's not that I want a bunch of shit thrown at me, but when I have stuff that's really hard and I work out how to deal with it, and then I can share about it so that other people might be able to deal with it as well. Um, that's my life getting better. It's like I can watch myself getting better at living. And I wanted to end with this. There's a guy who keeps relapsing, and he's really, so he's alone, I guess for a few days or something like that, maybe for the week because his family has gone out of town, and he's petrified of drinking because he's alone. And I was thinking about how that is so important, just as much as that. What are we doing when we pause? What is the meat that's inside that pause? What is happening when we're alone is the most important part. It's not what we're doing when we're around everybody in the fellowship or when we're at work or when we're around our family. A lot of what we learn in the program is how to behave with our loved ones, how to behave in our relationships and stuff. But what comes first and foremost is how we behave with ourselves. What is our understanding of what's going on when we're alone? Um, when I'm alone, am I thinking nobody knows what I'm doing, where I am, or, I could do this and nobody would know? You know, I could do X, Y, Z and nobody would care, nobody would know. Um, I don't think that anymore. I there are times that I that I have thought, um, what would happen if, and I would use my imagination and I would think about like, what would it be like if I didn't have a home and I had to sleep like I had to find I was thinking about this recently. My imagination is really never stops. I was thinking, what would it be like if I didn't live in a house and like I lost my house for some reason and I was alone? Where would I make my home? And I'm walking with Autumn and I'm like, that's a really nice little area of trees. I bet you I could do this and this. And so I'm like thinking about how I would build a little tent or place to sleep within all of these trees or something like that. Um, and if I was alone like that, like let's bring it a little further, would I drink? No, I wouldn't. Um, if nobody were to ever know, I wouldn't drink because when I'm alone, I'm not alone. Um, I'm with me. I'm with my higher power. I have my loved ones around me and within me. So this is what alone is for me, but it wasn't always that way. When I was drinking and I was alone because I don't know if I can articulate this, but when I was drunk and I was alone, I didn't have my own companionship. Does that make sense? Like, I have this relationship with myself. So when I decide, like when I stop recording today and I'm going to go on to my next thing that I do today, which is I'm gonna clean out my daughter's closet. When I'm in there cleaning out her closet, I'm talking with myself. I may not be saying anything out loud, but I've got a whole lot of conversation going on. Not, I'm not crazy. I have a relationship. I'm making decisions, and all of this is happening with myself. I'm listening to my intuition, and I'm reacting to my intuition and I'm listening to my desires and my wants, and I'm responding to my desires and my wants. All of this is this relationship with myself, and I have to listen to myself. I have to observe what how I react to things. What do I want to do? What do I need to do? What's the next right thing? All of this happens within me. And that is what alone is for me. I'm never going to be alone again. Never. It's impossible. If you were to give me a drink, I would be alone again. Because when I drink, I'm numbing that relationship. I'm numbing the ability to respond to myself, to know what is going on inside of me. I become one dimensional. Yeah, I become one dimensional. Um so my heart goes out to someone who continues to relapse because they feel like nobody would know. Because it's when we build a relationship with ourselves that's so strong that I would not even hide drinking from myself. I would not. want myself to know that I drank because because I love myself, then that's when I'm going to stay sober, you know? So hopefully I was able to articulate that well. It felt good. So when it feels good, that usually means I did all right. So thank you so much and it's all my imagination. That's what's happening. All of this stuff is just shit I'm making up. And it keeps me sober. So hopefully it helps you. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.